I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume. So I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. So we've just been reading about the Annunciation of Christ. The angel appears first to Zacharias to tell him of the birth of John. Then he appears to Mary to tell her that she will be the mother of the Son of God. And afterwards he then appears to Joseph to tell him that Mary is carrying the Son of God. But as we are going in chronological order, we are now turning back to the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi. Now, 3rd Nephi does have this heading here, so let's read that first. 3rd Nephi, the Book of Nephi. The son of Nephi, who was the son of Helaman, and Helaman was the son of Helaman, who was the son of Alma, who was the son of Alma, being a descendant of Nephi, who was the son of Lehi, who came out of Jerusalem in the first year of the reign of Zedekiah, the king of Judah. Now, this heading is just basically a genealogy of the author, but there is one very important detail that we get here, and that this is that Lehi left Jerusalem in the first year of the reign of Zedekiah. Now, this is stated, but somewhat vaguely, in the first book of Nephi. In 1st Nephi, we get that he started preaching in the first year of Zedekiah, and then he flees Jerusalem. But how long it takes for between the two is not clarified. This tells us that they actually left in the first year of Zedekiah. Using that, we can put the first year of Zedekiah as the year 600 BC, because it was 600 years before Christ. And in this way, we can get our timeline both of the Book of Mormon and of the Bible. We can anchor the timeline here. We can tell, using all the dates given, we can calculate with fair certainty the events of both Bible and Book of Mormon. But that's just the heading. Let us now go to chapter 1. Now, of course, we are going in chronological order, so we're going to be skipping around a bit because we're dealing with the time period of Christ's birth, and there's a lot going on here. So in this video, we're just going to read the first 8 verses. And I do also need to mention that my neighbors upstairs are being very loud again, so I do apologize for that. But let us read chapter 1, verses 1 through 8. Nephi, the son of Helaman, departs out of the land, and his son Nephi keeps the records. Though signs and wonders abound, the wicked plan to slay the righteous. The night of Christ's birth arrives, the sign is given, and a new star arises. Lyings and deceivings increase, and the Gadianton robbers slaughter many. Now it came to pass that the 91st year had passed away, and it was 600 years from the time that Lehi left Jerusalem. And it was in the year that Lecanius was chief judge and the governor over the land. And Nephi, the son of Helaman, had departed out of the land of Zarahemla, giving charge unto his son Nephi, who was his eldest son, concerning the plates of brass, and all the records which had been kept, and all those things which had been kept sacred from the departure of Lehi out of Jerusalem. Then he departed out of the land, and whither he went no man knoweth. And his son Nephi did keep the records in his stead, yea, the record of this people. And it came to pass that in the commencement of the 92nd year, behold, the prophecies of the prophets began to be fulfilled more fully. For there began to be greater signs and greater miracles wrought among the people. But there were some who began to say that the time was past for the words to be fulfilled which were spoken by Samuel the Lamanite. And they began to rejoice over their brethren, saying, Behold, the time is past, and the words of Samuel are not fulfilled. Therefore your joy and your faith concerning this thing hath been vain. And it came to pass that they did make a great uproar throughout the land, and the people who believed began to be very sorrowful, lest by any means those things which had been spoken might not come to pass. But behold, they did watch steadfastly for that day and that night and that day, which should be as one day, as if there were no night, that they might know that their faith had not been vain. So, the people, those who don't believe, are starting to rejoice. All the time is past, it's long gone. The prophecy is not fulfilled. Those who believe are getting worried. They're still holding on to their faith, they're still holding on, but they're wondering if they're holding on in vain, if those prophecies really weren't true. And again, we see a parallel in our modern day. We now, instead of waiting for the coming of Christ in mortality, or you're waiting for his second coming in glory, And how many people are there in the modern day who ridicule those who believe, who say the prophecies are false? It's long time. He was supposed to come back in the 1st century. That's what a lot of people say now. Say, oh, well, you read the New Testament, and all those prophecies were that he was going to come back immediately. He was going to be back within 100 years. Time is way beyond what the prophecy said. And even many will say, the year 2000 came, and that should have been the time. So there's a lot of people in modern day who are saying that the time is past. Now, back then, they had actually a specific time. He said 5 years, and then the sign will be given. Now, was it 5 years to the day? It doesn't really specify. It just says 5 years. But today, we are waiting for the second coming, and it's not even a specified time. We are told no man knows. So we can't point to a certain day and say that's when it's going to be fulfilled. In some ways, this makes us waiting for it easier, because no matter how many times people say the time is past, we can say you don't know because we don't know when the time was. We don't know when the time is. So how can we say it's past? But at the same time, it also makes it somewhat more difficult. Somewhat the mind will protest against this a little bit more, saying, why don't we have a specific date? If God knows everything, why didn't he tell us? But just look at what's going on here now in the timeline. Nephi has been translated. Nephi, the son of Helaman, just like Alma. They just walk out of Zarahemla, disappear, just like Moses. No Elijah being taken up in a fiery chariot. They just saunter out and are never seen again. They're translated. Now Nephi, the son of Nephi, has taken over. And again, it says he is his oldest son, which would indicate to me that he's not a young man. If you recall in my video I made on the age of Alma, I talked about Nephi here, and now the youngest I think he could be at this time is 20, and I think 30, or at least I said 30 was about the oldest I would put him at, because he's, in 33 years he'd be in his 60s when Christ died. Now, maybe he was a little older, and maybe he was only a disciple of Christ for 5-6 years, but I don't know. His age is a little bit of a question mark. On a final note, just remind people that there is no year zero. You have the center of the timeline. That's the birth of Christ, say. From that point to the end of the year is year 1 AD. And from that point to the end of the year this way is 1 BC. That's the year, starting here and ending here. There is no year zero. So in the 91st year of the Judges, that's the 600 years. And we get into the 92nd year because there is no year zero there. There is no point. It's a very odd thing to kind of wrap your mind around, is because we like to count when we count, 1, 2, 3, or we count backwards, really 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2. But we got to understand that the years, it's not year 0, year 1, year 2. No, year 1 is from point 0 to point 1 on the timeline. That's the year. So in the 91st year, we hit that 600-year mark. In the beginning of the 92nd year is when Christ will actually be born, because 600 years have passed, and until we get to the 600-year mark, until we get to that point in the 92nd year, we're still in the 600th year. It's very confusing. I'm going to leave that here, and I will see you in the next one. I believe I'm turning back to Luke next, so we'll see you there.